You have your attention for a moment, please. If everyone can take out their cell phones, handheld, personal devices, they have to be powered down. They can't be on vibrate, silent, or any other mode other than powered down. If you are speaking this evening, please sign in. We also ask that you please direct all comments, questions, and concerns to the board. Speak into the microphone because unfortunately we are unable to hear you if you're not closest to the board and at the microphone. If you need to discuss matters with one another, take it into the hallway. It interferes with our opportunity to hear those who are speaking. As always, we're going to be courteous to one another, and also there will be five-minute limit for discussions or rebuttals from applicants and from the public going forward. So there'll be a 5-minute time limit. We're going to start this evening's meeting with first motion to open.
Go ahead, John.
I make a motion to open the meeting of the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation for November 23rd, 2015.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Welcome to the November 23rd, 2015 meeting of the Architectural Board of Review and Historic Preservation. My name is Curtis Highsmith, and I am your chair. I'd like to introduce the panel that we have for this evening. We have Brian Brady, Jeff Bradley. Unfortunately, we do not have Esther Pastor, Christina Redding here this evening, but we do have our historic consultant, Zach Studenroth, our legal counsel, Bo Robinson, and Antoinette, as well as Charlie. We welcome you too. We would like to start this evening's meeting with signs. The first application, please.
First application is South Fork Asphalt.
Start first with the storefront sign. Your name
East
for the record?
Ventral from Hampton Signs.
This represents the color, font,
Yes, it does.
as well as the lettering.
Mm-hmm.
Will it be backlit in any form at all?
No.
What is the actual makeup of the sign? Is it wood?
It's painted PVC.
Let me see. And are the lanterns that are there now already existing?
The what?
The lanterns that are there
Yes, they're
currently?
existing.
You're not adding any
No.
more?
No.
Probably
Same
any
as
comments?
same size it was
Just-
before.
Any comments?
Fine.
Any comments on the application? Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the sign for South Fork Asphalt, the storefront sign.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And now the contractor sign. You gave me an agenda.
Oh,
That's
sorry.
okay.
That one's the same size as existing also.
Okay. So is it just the South Fork asphalt, or are you proposing
It's-
both?
They're both.
They're both.
It's one
They're
unit.
on top of the other. Representation of the color,
Exactly.
font,
Yeah.
description of the also logo that's being used.
Hmm.
Will there be any lanterns, any lit,
No.
and the material of the sign?
Solid PVC again. Double-sided.
Any issues with the
Nice and clean.
No, not with the sign. Dimension-wise, is there something already there? I can't.
Yes.
Yes, and it's the same size?
Same exact size.
Fine.
Any public comment on the application? Motion to approve.
Make a motion that we approve the contractor sign for South Fork Asphalt and Petro.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much.
Concludes our signed permits for this evening. First application, historic. There's a letter requesting that the application be adjourned. Didn't say for the next meeting. Is there an actual time that it asked or requested to be adjourned to?
December 14th.
Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn until December 14th.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant's request to adjourn to our next meeting on December 14th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next application, closed for written decision by council.
In the file is a decision approving the application as proposed. An affirmative vote on the motion will be to approve the application for demolition.
Motion to approve written
That's not
decision. Sorry?
That's not it.
We don't want to make these mistakes, so
Right.
let's make sure we have the right file.
It's 3:30.
Brian, is it to the left on the desk there to the left?
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay, motion to approve written decision by council for approval of 330 Hill Street.
I make a motion that we approve the written decision by council for 330 Hill Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next application, please.
The next application is William McKnight, 28 Gin Lane.
Good evening. For the applicant, John Bennett and Reed. Could I ask if, since I have the next application as well, just a little bit of admin, as they say. The next application is Meadowmere Partners, and I did on October 20th, and I'm asking you to talk about this now because I'm afraid I'll forget about it if I don't bring it up now. On October 20th, I did submit a letter
Request
asking
to
the
adjourn
matter
till the
be
14th.
14th.
That adjournment still holds.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't see it was on the calendar.
That's
so I just wanted to make sure that. Thank you. So this is, let me give you the affidavits of posting and mailing.
Is this it?
This is an application to demolish all of the structures and buildings at 28 Gin Lane. The application is before you because the property is located in the historic district, but as will be discussed and demonstrated, none of the buildings are contributing structures in the historic district. And so that there's no question about that, if you will, give me 1 second. I thought I had this in the order that I was going to present them. But here for everyone is a copy of the complete list of the contributing structures, buildings, and sites in the village. And if you shift to, if you look at Gin Lane, you'll see that 28 Gin Lane is not. You got it. 28 Gin Lane is not any of these. It's not on the list. None of the structures are contributing, and as you'll see, I think it'll be pretty obvious and pretty patent to you that it's the reason why they're not contributing structures, because it would not be appropriate for them to be contributing structures. Hopefully the board has copies of Mr. Studenroth's November 1st determination. Does everyone have a copy of that?
Mr. Studenroth is going to present that.
Okay, but I wanted to make sure that, should I submit it, or is it in the record?
It's a part of the record.
I did want to quote just a bit from it, in which he reaches the conclusion that the cluster, quote, cluster of outbuildings now located at 28 Gin Lane have either been moved or significantly altered, and in the process have lost their architectural integrity. A demolition permit may issue for the buildings. Let me talk a little bit about the buildings. There are 3 buildings on the property. I don't know, maybe the best thing to do in terms of where they sit, I'll give you a copy of what I did is I pieced together copies of the subdivision map on the property, where you can see where the buildings sit. I have one of those for everybody. Gotta get one of those extended. Yeah, thanks, John. Something like that. Thank you.
No, that has to be stamped then, because
Okay.
Oh, okay. There we go. So this is the filed subdivision map on the property, and you can all see on the second page. It's on the oceanfront lot, lot 2. There is what's called a guest house, which used to be 2 apartment units and now has 1. There's a single-family residence, which Zach refers to, I believe in his report, as the carriage, not the carriage house, the caretaker's cottage, which is what it looks like because it's small, but under the CO, believe it or not, this is actually a single-family residence on the property. And then there's an automobile garage. So that's where the 3 of them are on the property. So those are the three buildings on the property. The house and the caretaker's cottage, the house or caretaker's cottage, and the garage are not on the 1926 Sanborn map. There are some photographs of the submitted with the application, which I assume that you have, but I thought it might be easier, or the easiest, just to hand out these three additional photos of the building. The first one you see is this automobile garage. Sorry, I'm doing this again. Oh, okay, this way. The first one is this automobile garage. The second one is what Zach referred to as the caretaker's house, which is actually a single-family residence on the CO. And this other one is, it used to be a carriage house. So the guest house is on the 26 Sanborn map, but we submit of no moment. It's a substantially reworked from the original structure. And that's this. And then the garage and the caretaker's house, or the small single-family residence, are not on the 26 Sanborn map. And back for a second to this, what was the carriage house. We submit, as is apparent from viewing the property, there have been, the carriage house, significant fenestration changes, additions of two very large dormers, one which you can't see, but it's from the north, and one to the, on the, I guess that would be the westerly elevation, which significantly changed the house. And various, innumerable changes, not only to the fenestration, but to the exterior materials of the property. Again, none of the structures are on the contributing structures list of the village. One of them may have been, was, in its, before it was significantly altered, a accessory to the Wyckoff estate. The main house was demolished in 1941, so all of these buildings were accessory. But even the carriage house, which was the carriage house was accessory. None of the other ones are were demonstrably accessory. Again, the carriage house has been stripped of any architectural integrity or sympathy with the old Wyckoff estate. It's not a contributing structure. The other structures, again, are also not contributing. They're not structures of special character. They don't embody the characteristics of any particular architectural style. At best, they can be called, I don't know if anyone's used this before, but I would call it a mock Tudor revival. It's not Tudor revival. I don't mean to denigrate Tudor revival, which was a very significant movement of architecture. Amongst other proponents of it were Lutyens, but this is clearly not what could be called Tudor revival. They're sort of a pastiche of earlier styles put together. I would call it, in my research, this is sort of like a modernistic attempt at Tudor, which the current British architects call Tudor-Beathian, I thought, probably with a bit of a sneer. I thought that was pretty funny, but I think I think you'll agree with me that this is hardly any example of true Tudor revival. It's not the work of a designer whose work has significantly influenced any age. It doesn't represent an established and favored feature of the village. Indeed, it's fairly hard to see.
Those are elements that if we were looking to identify it as a contributing,
yes.
And therefore, well, not necessarily contributing, it's actually the characteristics if we want to go for designation.
That's right.
If they currently are in the historic district, the question is it a contributing structure within the historic district? I think you're probably going to get your answer.
Well, it's not, but
Okay.
I just wanted, I put in the belt and suspenders just to make sure that the board is comfortable. And in terms of, it not representing an established or favored feature of the village, there are points when you can see the house to a certain degree from Gin, but it not only is it somewhat hard to see, particularly when the privet is in full bloom. Here's a photo looking into the house, and you can just catch a glimpse of one of the structures. But I think as important is as what was the former communal compound develops. This is the house under construction, taken after the you make the bend around heading towards the Bathing Corporation and and the Dune Church, like you said, it's going to be obscured. You won't be able to see the site. And here's a site. Even with the privet starting to wane, you can see that it's hard to see. So it's I'm not making a jurisdictional argument, because there are, the board doesn't have jurisdiction when you can't see it from the road. There are times you can see it from the road, but I bring this to your attention to show that it would be hard to suggest that this was an established and favored feature of the village, because it's just not that obvious. So I would submit that all the criteria contained in the village code, and even the Secretary of Interior's historic preservation guidelines, would suggest that there's simply no reason for preservation of any of these structures, and to require such preservation would work a substantial and unnecessary burden on the homeowner. I don't know if there's any other questions that I can, questions that you had that I'd be more than happy to entertain, but I think it sort of speaks for itself. I think if you look at these structures, you realize they're hardly shining examples of any sort of architecture. They may have had one of the structures may have had some echoes of some sort of association with what's now 16 Gin Lane, which actually was not the main house of the Wyckoff estate. It's actually the bathhouse that was then significantly rebuilt. But that has been pretty well blundered out of that building. So.
Zach, contributing?
No.
Okay. We've heard your presentation about the application. The application before us today is to determine whether the structure itself is a contributing structure within the historic district. You've presented a case that it does not, but our historic consultant has also agreed with that evaluation. Anything further you want to add to that, other than so his analysis was pretty accurate?
No, it's accurate.
All right, board members. So at this time, there's no plan set forth for coming before this board. It's just a certificate of appropriateness to demo the structure itself. Since it is not a contributing structure, then therefore the applicant under our current code is qualified to do so. You have any questions, Brian?
No, it's very straightforward.
No.
Any public comment on the application? Please step forward.
I just have one question. What impact would this demolition have on rights to subdivide, or have those rights
That would
already
not
been
be before this
determined?
board and wouldn't be the jurisdiction
But I
of this
can
board.
answer it. It's already been
But-
subdivided.
Oh, it has?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I might as well answer it.
I understand. Just want to make sure for the record, it's not a responsibility of this board. Any other public comment? Okay, property is located in the historic district, even though you've granted seems that you have the votes and the agreement before the board to move forward with the certificate of appropriateness. Council will prepare it at our next meeting, which to be determined, we'll figure out tonight, so that we will have that written decision at that time. Any questions?
Will the next meeting be sometime in December?
14.
This is
14.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So it's the sense of the board that council could prepare a
We will be closing the
determination
application
authorizing
for
the
this evening.
demolition? Okay,
Correct.
thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for your
Motion to
time.
close for written decision by council.
I make a motion that we close for written decision by council the application of Willie McKnight.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great Thanksgiving.
You too. Concludes our historic applications for this evening. First application, non-historic. The applicant requested at our last meeting to adjourn until the 14th. That adjournment still follows through. Next application,
Jeffrey Lincoln.
no, it would be Luce Gould.
No, we're going to adjourn Jeffrey.
Okay. Yes, applicant requested that this application be adjourned until our next meeting. We have looked through the file. Posting and mailing currently is in our file, so we do have jurisdiction to rule on this application, so we will agree and grant you the motion to adjourn until the next meeting.
Thanks very much.
Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn until the next meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant's request to adjourn to our next meeting, Jeffrey Lincoln on North Main Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
very much.
Next application, please.
Louise Gould.
Good evening, board members, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Studenroth, Monica Navia, attorney at Burke and Sullivan, for the applicant Louise Gould at 104 Lewis Street. The last time that I appeared, I was asked to wait until Mr. Studenroth and Mr. Robinson had taken the time to see whether they wanted to expand this into designating a whole district or just focusing on one historic, the nature of 104 Lewis Street, whether it is historic or not.
Okay. Zach, you were able to produce and do some follow-up information on the particular structure itself, and I believe have prepared a presentation.
Fairly lengthy report. Perhaps I should just simplify by looking at the recommendations, which are recommended that the ARB initiate procedures for designating the Lewis Street boundary expansion area as a local historic district. This is a National Register listed historic district surveyed in 1990 and 91 and had overwhelming support among the property owners at that time for National Register listing, which was accomplished in 1993. As a National Register district, the expansion area meets the criteria for designation as a local district within the village. The ARB, as you know, is charged with, among many other duties, designating and thereby protecting individual sites and districts as landmarks here in the village. The purpose and intent of nominating the expansion area to the National Register in 1993 would be further reinforced through recognition as a local district at this time, thus fulfilling your objectives to preserve the historic character of the village. I felt it appropriate to shift the focus from this individual property to the larger context, because clearly it meets the criteria that both the National Register have as well as we have locally as a contributing resource in a historic district. And therefore, I don't feel we should overlook those criteria in our discussion of the importance of whether to preserve or lose this particular house. Potentially, in this particular application, this would mean consideration to designate this individual property as a landmark. There's a procedure for that. I don't presume to know what the outcome of that would be, but your board has equally a procedure to look at an individual property, whether it meets sufficient criteria for local designation. So I think that that's an option, but I think as presently defined, it's contributing in a historic district and therefore should be regarded as such.
But we're referring to a district that does not exist as of yet, but should be determined and go through a process to establish. Right. Question is, and I'll lean towards the legal portion of that, an active application that currently exists to single out an application, which now we have discussions about an overall establishment of a potential district, what the implications legally for this board to do so, if any.
You're asking the question. In the file is a memo that I've drafted, in which I've concluded that the Southampton Village Historic District does not include this area. This house was proposed as a National Register asset, which is not binding on our local law. And I also concluded that the house was evaluated under the criteria of Section 65-3B for its inclusion in a local district, which was never enacted. So I have concluded that at the present time, this house has to be evaluated on its merits as a standalone asset or not, but not under the criteria of 63B, but 63A. So therefore, any consideration of this as an historic asset needs to be evaluated on this house standalone and not as a potential inclusion in a district that has yet to be created.
Conversation opens up for further dialogue about moving forward with that process that we keep delaying and postponing and not following through with, which could potentially be another parcel, another structure that's lost in the district that should have been created some time ago. So I think this board needs to take in consideration that at best we should start moving towards a public hearing to establish discussions on the boundaries of what could potentially be a new historic boundary line. This particular application as a whole, unfortunately for me, may have been lost in the opportunity, but if this lost opportunity gets us to a point where we can move forward and get this done so that we don't lose any more, then at least it's not in vain. That's just my personal opinion. Brian?
I'm just looking at the house on its own merits as, you know, an older Dutch colonial on Lewis Street, and I've looked at the house to expand and renovate for a number of people, and I feel that the house on its own merit has a lot of potential to be expanded and done in a very tasteful way,
Okay.
so that we wouldn't lose the structure.
Okay, so your comments are to take the current structure and try to expand on it to save, to at least use the features or current features and
Right.
elements in the current structure and expand on that rather than changing the facade altogether.
Right.
Brian? I mean, sorry, Jeff.
If there's a way to do that, I would prefer that as to demolishing a house in an historic district or to the extent.
Close to an historic district.
Right.
Not in a historic district,
Right.
let's say, for the record.
Right.
It's not in a
And
historic
I would feel uncomfortable voting for its demolition at this point.
Is there any public comment on this?
I'd like to respond.
Yes, I'm sure. But there may be other comment. Let's
Okay.
check and see. Is there any public comment on the application?
Michael White, Southampton. I agree that Lewis Street has a lot of nice historical houses on it, but this isn't one of them. This is a kit house. This is a Sears Roebuck kit house, and they've made tens of thousands of them. From my historical professional, we've looked at this, and the studs in the house are actually numbered. So this is like the old modular house that we would call modular house today. They used to send them with all the studs cut, the roof cut. They were simple to put together. They used to come on a rail car. They made a lot of 4 squares. And although it's a nice looking house, I mean, it's just, there's nothing to it that's historical. It's got, you know, it's not the architect Sears and Roebuck. It's not some famous architect. And what I think we're proposing, we have a picture of it, a rendering, is going to be something very similar. It's going to be a gambrel. It's going to have a turret on it, like a lot of the houses on that block. We actually have a better one. We just got. You know,
Is this the one you're referring to?
huh?
Is this the one?
Well, we got a better one. That was like kind of the beginning one. And you know, I think it's important that when you build a house on Lewis Street, that you have to build something that's in the, you know, within the realm of what's there, the historic houses, or it would look out of place. And you know, I'm willing to build that house that's there with the wood roof, the wood siding, very similar to the house that's there. And I totally disagree that there's anything historic about that house. I mean, it's got aluminum siding on it. It's got termite damage. It's got an old foundation. So I don't see why you would even want to keep that house. And there are houses on Lewis Street that I've seen renovated, but they're much bigger. They're much nicer. They're easier to do. I don't know how you would even fix that house.
Zach, there's some reference by, I'm assuming, the builder, correct? You're the builder or contractor, Mike?
Yeah,
You're the
yes.
builder?
I'm
Yeah.
a contract.
Okay. Well, I think you're a little all over the map there. I believe the accepted construction date is 1913. At least that's what the National Register nomination form presents. And I don't have any reason to disagree with that, perhaps you do. I would say that a structure built according to a Sears kit can't simply be dismissed as not historic. Neither of us were alive then. A lot of time has gone by, you know, and so by virtue of its age, 1913, anything before 1965, as far as the National Register is concerned, qualifies. So we're about 52 years before that.
Okay.
It's very hard for anyone, whether you're in the profession of determining what's historical or not, if you're not. You can't qualify what's more historic or less historic on the basis of what's larger and grander or less. Those are not the criteria. So I just don't feel that that's a qualified statement. And I also think it's important for us to take into consideration the issue of integrity. Because oftentimes it's presented that such things as aluminum siding compromises integrity. In fact, it doesn't. It probably encapsulates integrity. And in any event, it's a sacrificial sheathing. Even if it replaces the original sheathing, it does not in itself constitute a lack of integrity. I'm sure in your construction practice you have replaced roof coverings. That's something that needs to happen every 20 years or so. Fine. Whether a house has a new roof on it or not does not relegate it into a category of no longer being historic. It's irrelevant. And in fact, this board, which is quite gracious and accepting to the updating of homes according to such things as thermal issues, etc. We're all living in a real world. This board will accept the replacement of window sashes. That alone, in my vocabulary, those are character-defining features of an old house. But we live in a real world. And so if someone presents the replacement of window sashes, if they replicate 6/6, whatever the configuration is, that's fine. That in and of itself is not defined as a loss of integrity. So I would suggest that any notion of the application of aluminum siding, forget about it. Any notion of enclosing a porch as a loss of integrity, forget about it. It's not relevant.
What about age?
So, I'm sorry?
Is age, because I've
Indeed, we're all getting older. And
Well,
I
I've called
started
the
by
National
saying it was built in
Registry.
1913, and therefore, by definition, it qualifies.
Well, that's not what the federal government told me as of
Quote that,
Friday.
please.
I will bring it to you. They said
Please,
if that's the
no, quote it.
case, they said every single house in Levittown is historic. And they said that's nonsense. They said just because you have a structure that's left with a frame doesn't make it historic. They said a Sears kit house is not historic. And that's
Oh,
what
okay.
that's what they told. That's what my expert, and I'll bring him next time. He says that is not a reason. Now I just watched an application for the old Wolkoff estate. Now those houses were part of that estate, but now they're not contributing. And I have this piece of junk that I'm buying on Lewis Street, and this is somehow more important, not in a historic district, than something in the old Woolworths estate. And those are Tudor houses over there, but that doesn't matter. Those are gone. One meeting. But this is a problem, and that's the problem with this village. There's no rhyme or reason. I went in the contract based on the fact that this was not in a historic district, okay? I've been before this board 30 times. I've never heard of a house being preserved out of the historic district. Never. You can't tell me one case that you've done it. I've looked. So
I could cite the barber shop on North Main Street.
besides the barber shop,
No, not besides. You just said, please cite an example.
that's a different story.
I don't know why it's different. I'm just citing. The code provides for a procedure whereby structures which were not recognized as contributing buildings in the historic district, that there is a process by which they can be assessed and a series of hearings be held to make that determination.
The barber shop is different because
I only cited one example.
they
I'm sorry, you
preserved
asked for
it.
one example.
they preserved it because they got CPF funds. That's why they did it. Otherwise, they weren't going to do it. Now, what about the Pierce Concert House?
Michael, excuse me, I didn't want to interrupt your thought, but I just want to let you know that my memo says that this cannot be evaluated as part of an historic
Okay.
district, okay? So just to clarify that for you, it's not. It's got to be evaluated
own
from the
merits.
beginning on its own merits as a standalone entity.
Right,
Okay.
that's all.
And
And there is a procedure in the code for that. That's all that's being said.
But what I'm saying is that I think that we're starting to, I've seen some pretty historic houses on Gin Lane get torn down recently. And I can't even believe that this has become a 3-meeting so far over a Sears and Roebuck house. That's honestly been butchered. I mean, I wish you could go inside of it or see the foundation. I mean, there's really, at some point, you have to look at the integrity. And I agree with you, Brian, about, there maybe there could be, but is it going to be worth it to do it? I mean, you got a foundation that's falling apart, that's got to be underpinned. The time you tear this apart, take out all the termite damage, take the siding off, the roofing off, what do you got left?
So what you're referring to is hardship, financial.
Right.
It's not necessarily the integrity of the structure. It's not necessarily the fact that it is or may possibly be a historic or a relevant structure with outside of the historic district, but possibly historic. It has to do financial. Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's partly financial because
Mostly?
I would say probably at least 60-70% of it.
So that's a hardship. Now, that's a different category. Those are other means. We're not necessarily identifying the structure as not being a contributing structure outside of the historic district. We're just saying that financially it may not be worth it. That's a different conversation altogether. So I want to make sure that, just for the record, we identify what we're talking about here. That's a financial matter. This has to do with board members and a historic consultant who identify this structure independently as a potential contributing structure outside of the historic district, which could also start the conversation and dialogue to establish the overall district down the road. That doesn't exist currently. This is identified individually. So right now, it doesn't look like you have the votes. The members here, unfortunately, not in a position where they feel that they are comfortable approving the application to move forward. The question is, does the board feel it necessary to go through a process of proceedings for potential designation, which is another set of hearings? Brian.
I think it does.
Jeff.
I'll concur with Brian.
So right now, that's where the board stands. The majority of the board at this hour feels that the process should move forward with designation.
As a particular home or a district? Because
This particular
we're
home,
talking about
individual
several.
home, individual.
One standalone
One
entity.
standalone
That's
home.
what
It
the
just-
memo.
I understand.
all about.
I understand. It just seems that unfair to my client in the sense that, on the one hand, Mr. Studenroth just pointed 2 out of 5, and because perhaps there wasn't enough to deem it historic, then we're zooming out and potentially looking at it as an entire historical district,
No,
and
we're-
that was.
we're
Hold on,
at-
can I please finish?
Yeah,
Okay.
I understand it, but
Okay.
when you're saying that we're deeming it historic, we're not at a point where we're deeming anything historic.
Right, but I read the very lengthy memo by Mr. Studenroth,
Okay.
wherein he also said, development pressures throughout the village suggest that neighborhoods such as this that embody the character of the village through the diversity of their architectural forms and styles are vulnerable to loss if not provided some measure of restraint from overdevelopment or protection through landmark designation. So I'm wondering if after 22 years, all of a sudden you decide, I mean, what's been going on, guys? 22 years, and now you decide to potentially maybe think about sometime in the future designating this the Lewis Street expansion. That's completely unfair to my client.
That's not what's being. That's not what was
because-
said. That was not what was just said. So I'm sorry because so much was said and maybe intertwining in the conversation.
No, I'm understanding, but
So
I'm saying
we're
there's
not
either
saying
looking.
that the process moving forward at this time is identifying the district as a whole. This board is looking at this application in this house independently and stating that their proceedings, based on the consensus of the board, should begin to start looking at designation for this particular
Got it.
parcel.
And I hope that's the case, because it would be unfair for my client to hold up any sort of work on the house on something that may or may not happen sometime in the future.
The
I mean,
memo says that.
okay, I
that's
just want
not
to
the
make sure
opinion of
that's clear
council.
for the record, because there
It's-
seems to be either, we're trying to figure out what's going to stick, whether we're going to look at it like a historic landmark or whether it's going to be a historical district.
Monica, I've tried to establish this as a timeline as of today, that nothing in the past is applicable to this
Okay.
house.
And again, I want to reiterate that we're not disputing the age of the house. We understand it's 103 years old, but there has to be more than age. Does it look like it did in the past? And according to the code, it says, the board's decision to approve or disapprove shall be based upon the following principles: features or properties which make significant contribution to the character of a landmark shall be altered as little as possible. B, any alteration shall be compatible with its historic character. And again, it's not, we cannot dismiss the fact that there is aluminum siding. There's been other significant changes to the house. There's been a new roof, aluminum storm screens, the top of the chimney was replaced in 2003, the steps on the front porch were replaced. So obviously, it doesn't look like it did in 1913, so it's more than age, and I fail to see how these two factors that you pointed out, special character or distinguishing characteristic. The house that would be built would be very similar. It's a similar gambrel style, and based on what Mike White, the contractor, said, the house is falling apart, and it would be in the best interest of the neighborhood to have a similar
Just
house.
for the record, understand, he's identifying himself as the contractor, builder, and owner. Most owners would say their homes, if they want to tear it down, is in disrepair. So so we understand that it is general practice that anyone coming before us wishing to tear their home down would say it's in disrepair, it can't
Not
be repaired.
necessarily. I mean, no, that's
90% of the
that's
people
not.
that come before
No,
us have said
but
so.
I disagree.
But just so we understand, I'm again, we're at a standstill right now because as
No,
it
I'm
stands
understanding, but I'm also, I have to make the record clear, because now it's shifted, and now we're not looking at it as a historical district solely on this one house that's not in a historic district. I just want to make sure we're clear. And then I ask more clarification on the two criteria that Mr. Studenroth chose the last two meetings. It seems that I just
If I may,
didn't.
Curtis, we're not there yet.
Okay.
Okay, the issue at the last meeting was what impact, if any, did the fact that this was listed as a contributing asset to the National Register have on this application? Mr. Studenroth submitted a memo of November 16th. I reviewed that. I analyzed the testimony, what had been taken, the facts, the circumstances, and concluded and recommended to the board that the past history of this as a contributing asset to the National Register should not be a consideration of the deliberations on this house. That this house has to be considered as if it just came up as an application for demolition, not as a demolition on its own. And that's where we are at the moment. We're not, Mr. Studenroth hasn't made a report regarding this house as a standalone entity. You all haven't submitted any expert testimony or any other testimony why this should be preserved or demolished as a standalone entity. So let's just try and get the procedure clear so we don't trip over that as time goes by.
No, I understand that, but
Okay.
if that report was in November 16th, we could have had time to hire a historian
Well,
if
that's,
that was the
no,
inclination of
that's
this
no,
board.
that's exactly what I'm trying to avoid. That kind of conclusory. No, there's a procedure here. It's first base,
And I'm
second
not
base.
asking to
Please
go
don't
against
interrupt.
that.
It's first,
Right.
right. So we're now at first base, if you will, or second, where Zach has submitted his report. We've addressed the issue with regard to the impact or the affect of the National Register, and it's been recommended by council that this house be evaluated on a standalone basis. That's where we are this
And I just want to
evening.
make sure that my client isn't being used as a scapegoat for people saying that there should be a restraint from overdevelopment. I think we should be focusing on this one house then.
That's where we are, but
Okay.
that has yet to take place and evolve, and I'm sure you're going to want to come back and start to present your testimony to build up your case on this with whatever experts or specialists you have and you want to bring in to establish your case.
Right, but again, it's going to be another 2 weeks. And
Yes,
last
it
time
is.
I
It's
was
gonna be
here,
more than
I
2
asked
weeks. It's
whether
gonna
I
be
should
more
have a
than-
historian here.
No, because that wasn't where we were tonight. The board hadn't made its decision, so why should the board say to any applicant, bring historic consultants in? Because then you know what happens, Monica? The attorney says, well, now that you're not going to do anything, why did I bring the historic consultant in? So the board can't win, can it? If it says one thing, it's the other way. If it says something else, it goes the other way. This is where we are tonight to get to the point where whether or not the board wants to pursue this as a standalone application, and that's where we are. So now, the next meeting will be consultants and testimony.
So at the next meeting, you're going to decide whether you're going to look at it like a standalone?
No, that's
or-
being decided tonight.
Okay, okay. And then we'll know with an advance
You
notice?
know now.
Okay,
You know now. And the board is apparently saying that they wish to consider it as a standalone historic asset.
okay.
The other thing is, when I looked at this house, one of the reasons why I was buying the house was because it was in bad shape. That's not fair to say that it's some self-serving, idea why I bought it, that I'm the contract vendee, so of course I'm gonna say the house has fallen down. That's not true. That's questioning my integrity.
Didn't question your integrity.
You did. You said, why would anybody do that?
No, I've said 90% of the applicants that have come before us, they actually own the property, have
Right.
identified and wish the home to be demolished, starts first by talking about the financial hardship.
Well, I mean, Ms. Gould just walked in, and she has to move out of this house. She has to get a house that's more appropriate for her living arrangements. And you're affecting her. I mean, I got plenty of work. I don't need to buy this house, but she needs to move, and she needs to get into her apartment, and she needs to move on with her life. And I've never seen this type of process for a house to be torn down. I've never seen it. And I've seen the Philip Johnson house get torn down. It had all the criterias checked. And this is what I don't
It didn't
understand.
get torn down.
It's torn down now.
No, it's not.
I was there today.
The wing has been torn down, but the whole house is preservation. The
I
board
didn't-
approved it.
I didn't see one single piece there. But I really don't understand, what the process is. It seems like there is no process. I don't know. I don't even know what the next step is. I understand that now this is a standalone, which is great, but are you going to change the law? You told me one time that I came here and you said they're not going to change the law from 35 to 30. The next meeting, it's changed. What is the next step? Are you going to change this into a historic district in between? I don't know. Just let me know what we have to do and I'll have it done. I mean, I'm not sure what the next
I
step
believe
is.
council talked about the process this evening.
The code spells out the process, Michael. 65, 7, or 8, but it spells it out. You can come here at the next hearing and make a presentation on the merits as to why this should not be considered for a landmark.
Okay.
Well, if this is a landmark, it would be crazy for anybody to buy a house in this village without getting permits, because it's become like it's like a wild card. What's going to happen? And it's not fair.
Well, there's a procedure in the code for houses prior to 1926 for them to be evaluated whether or not they should be designated or considered for landmarks. This house obviously qualified for that. If this was a 1936 house, it wouldn't have qualified for that, and the building inspector could have issued the demolition permit as of right. Now, I understand what you're saying, but you're not really tracking the law, and you're sort of passive-aggressive on you know something and you don't know the law. This is all spelled out, so it's not fair to sit there and say you don't understand this or
No,
you're
we understand
charged
the
with your
procedure.
attorney knowing the procedures.
It's
The
not-
board,
No,
the
we-
board isn't here to spell out the procedures for applicants.
It's not clear if this house is before 1926 either.
Well, that's the evidence you'll present when you come back
What-
and
is
argue
there
the
evidence?
case.
Zach, I mean,
Zach said there was.
Where is it? It's not in the building department.
I'm going by the record, and I'm also going by my experience of assessing houses of this type. So it could be 1917. Okay. So that may come out in further testimony. I also want to point out that I would caution you and all applicants, when you talk about aluminum siding, that's sort of like the great divide. The First Presbyterian Church is sided in aluminum siding. Are we going to suddenly decide that that's not historic? My point is, let's not focus in on those kinds of things. You're talking about integrity. And so if you want to present, you know, some sort of professional testimony to the effect that this particular building has lost its architectural integrity, I wouldn't hang it all on the aluminum siding.
I'm not.
I just wouldn't, because there's a lot of historic buildings that have been recited over the years in one form or another that are still contributing.
There's
So
been a lot more changes in the
lose
aluminum.
the aluminum.
But that's
Yeah.
one part of major change.
I see it. I
you
have
know?
a picture of
Okay.
it. I know what it looks
So
like.
at this point, we
I
are going to have a
understand. I
historian.
understand. Good.
I think
But
there's
I
a-
would lose the argument over aluminum siding entirely.
I
think
would-
it bears no weight whatsoever.
I would think a church built in the 1700s.
It
and
was
a-
not. It was built in 1845.
Okay, 1845,
So-
and a house that's
I'm not going to argue that point.
a
I'm simply
gambrel
saying
that's a million of.
that a
It's a little-
historical building that's been recited does not equate with losing its integrity. That's a separate issue.
And that's your opinion, but another historian
It's not
might
an
have
opinion.
a difference.
It's a professional observation.
Okay, well,
and a
at this
fact.
point,
It's
we're going
not
to
an
hire
opinion.
our own historian
Okay, fine.
and
It's
bring it
not
next
an
time.
opinion.
Just so you
Okay.
understand, he is our hired historian.
Oh, no, I
a historic
understand.
consultant that advise this board, just like we have legal counsel. So we heavily on his professional
But I have a
analysis.
right,
But
and my client has a right to hire also a
Which is part
professional
of the
historian.
process, which we've
No, I
been
know,
trying
and
to say
I've
all
done,
night
and
is-
I've done this with you before. I understand the process. I don't need to be told what the process is or spoken to in that manner. Okay, so I understand that he is the hired historian.
Can I ask a question? Am I saying something lately or speaking in the manner that's disrespectful because I'm being told that I'm?
No, I understand the process.
Yeah,
I am an
I'm
attorney.
not talking down to you, and I haven't.
Okay. I am an attorney. I understand the process. So at this point, we're going to hire a historian and come back.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Any public comment? Anything? Please step forward.
I'm sorry I'm so late. I'm Louise Gould. I own the house. And I know, I kept the letter that we received in 1991, I believe. Never, ever we're told it was turned down by the village and that there was no historic district. It wasn't until, for us, at that time.
I'm sorry, what was turned down? I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
It was evidently presented to the village to put the 44 houses, I believe there's in this, in a historic district. And the neighbors fought it so bad, it was turned down. That's what I was told by the neighbors. Now, at no time, from that time to when it became my property, was anybody ever notified us that was in a national registry. And I feel this is really causing a problem. I've lost one sale over this, and not knowing this, we have had some sort of rights violated. I mean, I do not feel the house is historic. It's old, it's tired, and it comes to a point where we just don't fit in. And I would appreciate it if you could please honor us with this permit so that I can go on and spend my time, what I have left in my life, just not worrying about what's going to happen next.
The board is obviously moved by your situation you're in,
Yeah.
and
I'm
your
sorry
current
it came to
condition.
this because
I
we
understand.
didn't know until they found it out up in the building inspector's office. And one of my neighbors has done work on their home, and they never ran into this problem. All of a sudden now, it's become my problem. And I can't represent 44 people. I'm sorry.
No one's asking you to do that, and
Thank
we
you
understand,
for your time.
and we're very sympathetic to your situation.
Yeah.
This is the concern the board has now is procedurally. The board is looking at the application independently, the structure independently.
All right.
Not any 44 homes or any other
Okay.
not in a district, but we've been instructed to, with regards to a procedure and process. We as a board have elected to move forward with that process.
All right.
And as it stands now, your representation, or whether it be the contractor or attorney, has the right to come before this board at the next meeting to come up with whatever testimony, evidence, and information that will help your case more. So
Okay.
what we're saying is we're giving the opportunity to prove that case.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further from the board?
No, not at this point.
Anything further from the applicant? Motion to adjourn?
I make a
No,
motion.
I'm sorry. You're preparing, so you're going to request the board to adjourn until the next meeting?
Yes.
Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn.
I make a motion to approve the applicant's request to adjourn to our next meeting for Louise Gould on Lewis Street.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Next application, please.
Frederick Eaton for driveway gates.
Is it possible to shut that off?
Let's see.
So what would you do?
Is the applicant present?
What's that?
Do you need flowing air on all the microphones?
This is that same
is it-
one.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, this is the one saying these two surveys. We have had no follow-up on the application. Can we send a letter out to the applicant to find out what's going on? Just an update. Motion to adjourn?
Make a motion that we adjourn the application of Frederick Eaton for driveway gates.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next application, please.
Next application is Leah Marie Rosalia.
Hmm? Number 6?
No, number 4.
Number 4? Okay.
Franklin Rosalia, 145 Elm Street. I apologize again for bringing plans here tonight, but I'm working hard.
I see a set of large plans and a set of small plans. They're duplicates?
Duplicates, yep.
And everything that's on the small plans are in smaller rendering, but same dimensions that's on the large plans, correct?
Yes, yep, and it's just scale too. We've tried very hard not only to simplify the proposed house, but also to reduce the massing on the street side as requested. We value Mr. Brady's opinion last time with respect to his comments of the simplified design we had presented, but we decided to continue with that design and hopefully at this meeting address some of the concerns and issues that the other board members have. We believe we've done so and hope that you agree. To accomplish this, we've done several things. On the front elevation, we've taken the tower and moved it to the center of the building, 3 foot, to reduce the massing of that particular aspect. The right side gable on the second story, we've reduced from 19-foot 3 to 16-foot 9, 2.5 feet. And we reduced it from this side, we've taken it from here, moved it this way to again reduce the massing overall on the second story. I reduced the second story from 43 foot wide to 37 foot wide. The right side gable on the upper story, we've pushed back an additional 5 foot from the street. It was 34 foot 6 from the street. Now it is 39 foot 6 from the street.
Nothing's changed in terms of positioning the structure? Still,
No.
You're still moving forward? So nothing's changed in terms of...
We're still at the same spot it was, yeah.
And what you're saying is that you're proposing that you've made changes to the front facade that will impact the massing?
Massing, right. The gable over this gable, the upper gable, is pushed back even further from the plane of this wall. So again, as to reduce the massing. The front porch line and the eave over the garage, which is all continuous, has been dropped a foot to give less impact from the first floor, first story. The windows on the garage have been enlarged in order to make the garage less of a presence. And that was it. As shown As stated at previous meetings, there are many varieties of homes on Elm Street. The houses don't line up consistently in a row up and down the street. The only consistency there is on Elm Street is the lack of consistency with regard to width, depth, height, size, style, and so forth. And that's, of course, one of the things we mentioned that we like about Elm Street. There are many homes on Elm Street that are close or even less than the 30-foot setback that we are proposing. The two houses down is at about 23 foot from the property line. And these houses come in all shapes and sizes. Would like to draw your attention to just a few houses on Elm Street that are similar to what we are proposing.
Is there a reason why we have option A, B, and C?
I'm sorry.
Middle window.
It's different. This element here between the gable and the tower, different options with windows. One is a small dormer, one is no window, and one is a oculus, what I think they call it.
We've had applications come before us trying to speak so it's not condescending. Because we've had applications come before us before, and they give us options, multiple choice. Kind of dilutes the process itself because you're supposed to be presenting what you feel is the best application to come before the board. Okay. And that's your representation. When you come in with options, that means you're not affirmed about what you're proposing. Okay. It kind of waters down the application process a little bit. Okay. Me personally, I'm speaking for me. I'm not speaking for any other board member. I'd rather you say, this is my design, this is my home, this is what I want to propose, and not the multiple choice.
Okay.
Which option are you leaning towards?
I think we lean toward the Oculus window.
C? Oh, C?
C.
Let's take everything else out and talk about your application for C.
For C, okay.
Thank you.
So, as I was mentioning, I'd like to draw your attention to a few of the houses on Elm Street, which I don't know if you were given. If you were given.
Yeah.
The first is 194 Elm Street. It's 30 foot off the property line. It's 44 foot wide. Just as a reminder, our house is 30 foot off the property line, but it is 37 foot on the second story and 40 foot on the first story. So this is a very excellent example of a home that, with respect to what we are proposing.
What is the
as far
front
as
width
mass.
of that parcel that you're referring to?
I'm sorry?
What is the front width?
Front width is 100 foot. And we are 90 foot.
I'm sorry?
We are 90 foot.
Okay.
But this parcel is on the corner of Elm and Pelletreau, which makes the massing stand out even more.
And the lot size of the one you're proposing?
Of this lot, I'm sorry?
Of the one that you're using as
Your
an
lot.
example.
Well, our lot is 12,500 square foot, it's 12,250 square foot.
Okay, and the one you're using as an example is?
Let's see it on
I'm looking, 14,418.
Similar.
Similar, okay.
The next one is, on the other corner of Elm and Pelletreau is 176 Elm. It's 31 foot off the street. It's 37 foot wide. It's let me get the width of the street, width of the property. 77 foot, it's narrower than our property. Again, it's on the corner of the street. It's a big house, very evident from its positioning on the street. Two more brief examples is 29 Elm Street. It's 33 foot off the street. It's 46 foot wide. The front width of the property is 99 foot. The overall lot size is 15,000 square foot. One last is 30 Elm Street. It's 33 foot off the street. It is 41 foot wide. The porch, however, comes in to just 24 foot off the street. The lot size is 100 foot wide. And, nope, it's, 104 foot wide, and the area is 10,600, so it's even smaller. We feel that this shows our home wouldn't be an unusual addition for Elm Street, and that precedent has already been set if that's been an issue, if that's an issue for this board. We have a very unique lot, as we mentioned last time, with respect to width and depth. We're trying to show our willingness to reduce the street massing in the last version as well as in this current version. And that's it.
That's not the version.
Yes, you have to see.
Brian, comments about the positioning of the house will remain the same. There's some facade changes at the front to try to reduce the visual impact of the massing. Do you feel that it was successful?
I think it's very successful. I think every time you're tweaking it a little more, it gets better and better. I do prefer option C as well. I think it needs something, but the dormer was a little overpowering. And I don't have a problem with where it's being located on the site. If you go up and down Elm Street, there's a big mix of up, forward, and back, and I don't think it's going to take away anything from Elm Street. So, as I said in the last meeting, I'm focusing more on making the architecture work because it is Elm Street. And I think what they've done is very successful.
Jeff?
I've been consistent in stating that I am concerned about the placement of the house, and that in my mind that it creates a certain amount of disharmony with the immediate surrounding houses. And I would wish, and I mentioned it the last time, that with the options available to you, in terms of your backyard and the fact that you also own the abutting property, which may or may not be relevant, but it is a fact that you brought up, and so that, you know, it was something that you stated on the record, so that you do have options. And my wish is that you would have come back to this board with perhaps not moving it back to the existing structure, but somewhere in between, and that there could have been some compromises made on the options that you do have available to you. So I remain concerned with the placement. If you see it within your heart in terms of responding to the community to push it back a little bit further, I would, as a board, I think your neighborhood would appreciate it.
We've shown evidence of 30-foot setbacks with many houses, so what is it about this that bothers you?
This particular house and its adjacent houses. You selected properties that, yes, they're on Elm Street. They may not be necessarily next to it. They're different lots. So I view it as a person driving down the street. And that's my wish.
Those properties all, though, have adjoining houses that are set back a ways from the house that I presented. So it's nothing different than what we have here. The house to the right of 176 Pelletreau, the house in the corner, is a ways back from the adjoining house.
I view each house and each application as it is in terms of the streetscape. And these are my eyes, this is my judgment, this is how I view the streetscape. And again, given the options, which this is a board that does use its judgment, that's defined by the code. So in my mind, and then again, given the options that you have, my wish is that you could see it within yourself to move it back somewhat further, to take advantage of those options.
But is there a way to do it in your judgment that we don't have to move the house back? Like, what is it about the massing that bothers you?
He just doesn't want it.
Just doesn't want it, okay.
It's a setback.
I have no issues with the architecture of the house. I also prefer C, which I'm glad you used that. That was a good answer. Did walk down Elm Street and actually walked up and down Elm Street. And this would be probably the first of the line of homes that are closer to the street than the prior, which, quite frankly, since it's in succession, I don't think I would have too much of an issue. I think you've toned it down. I believe it would be a good addition to the community overall. My questions would be more of a landscape? What will you do in the front yard to mitigate some of the front facade? Do you have a landscape plan that you're?
We're going to put privet along the street.
Do you have that as part of your application overall?
I think it's on the survey.
What is the height? What is the?
I believe so, yeah. Is 6 foot proposed on the survey?
So 6.
It's not up here.
It's not. You have the file?
It's on the survey.
You have the file on it?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I can give you another one if you like.
So privet the only front landscape that you're proposing?
Well, that we propose, and we're going to landscape it nicely. I mean, I know that doesn't mean anything, but.
Well, no, it does. Everything you do to the parcel, especially in the front facade, I think it softens the overall impact. So if you're able to distract from a structure as we move further, only 30 feet from the street, anything you can do to keep your eyes focused not so much on the facade, but more on some of the decorative elements will help.
My wife would like to say something.
Sure.
Hi, Leah Rosalie. Yes, we have mature landscaping that we plan on reusing with the new proposed house. We have privet. We want the privacy too, and I think you can understand.
I'm doing some trying to help you with the application.
And I understand
some
that.
of the thing's that may help us identify some who unfortunately are not in favor of the application.
Sure, and I'd like to speak to that because I say this with respect, but you really, you were asked not to bring that up. I believe that the possibility of merging, that it's not within
I didn't
the
say
board's.
anything about merging. I just.
Well, you said it was an option, but really.
I said you have options.
Options.
I didn't say what they were. You had brought up the fact that you own the house in back. I just repeated something that you brought up. I wasn't telling
Right, but
you what to do.
Yes, you can. Okay, that's fine. I think that is not an option, just to make it very clear. It is not an option for us to merge those pieces. They were bought single and separate. They're both conforming in size. We're asking you to look at this application alone, this home alone, and we've also shown that what we're proposing is not out of the ordinary, and we would like you to take that into consideration.
Okay, tonight we don't have the votes, but I think if you were to come with something that will help and assist, especially visually, and show that an impact like a landscape plan, something more colored, maybe even color rendering, that will illustrate what it would look like once you impose all of the landscape. That may be helpful. But right now, we just don't, unfortunately, have the votes. Any public comment on the application? Anything further from the board? Okay.
My name is Mike Famiglietti. I'm on the south side, 139 Elm Street. And I was just hoping that, it would be, if I could just get a few more feet set back, I could, I was just hoping that they would willing to move it back a few more feet. Not just 1 or 2 feet. I mean, I would split the difference 10 more feet. I could, I'd like to see that, if it would be in the kindness of their heart to think that way.
What if they were to landscape the portion of the side that you're mostly affected, so visually?
Well, landscaping only goes so high. I mean, we're talking 20-foot building. I mean, I'm going to be looking at a building, and now I'll be looking at landscaping and a building. So it's still blocked. The view is totally be blocked.
Blocked from?
From the view of my front of my house. Looking out the front, the second floor, there's a second floor deck, and that view would be totally blocked.
Okay, so you're concerned about the second story deck?
Yes.
So if the second story deck was decorative or removed?
No, he has.
No, I have
You
a
have a
second
second story deck.
Overlooks.
So I have actually a picture of what it would look like from the second story deck if you were to look out that way and what you would see. I only have this one picture. In fact, you can also give this picture too. And where those, I guess they're arborvitaes, I mean, that's where the house would begin. So I wouldn't see any of that any longer. So right here, I'm just going to hold up this single picture. At this point, me looking this way, I'll be seeing house here. And there's no view to the right, because I don't have it, the deck is only open on the front and left side.
What, I'm sorry, your house number again?
139.
No wiggle room at all? No wiggle room at all for movement?
With respect to moving the house forward. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Well, we are already at the setback in order to have a pool, which I know this board doesn't take into consideration, but it is something that we would like as a family. We're at that setback. There's unfortunately no wiggle room. We are trying to, it's been mentioned mass, and that is what we are trying to soften. I think we've done that. We've also shown that this is not something unusual. If we need to do some different landscaping in the front, we're willing to do that, but we cannot move the house back, unfortunately.
I'm just showing that, unfortunately.
No, I understand.
Looking at the votes.
But we can't do that.
Okay. All right. Is that for the
Now, it's in
record?
respect of some of those houses that you had mentioned that were, like the one on Pellic Rose, that house was knocked down and rebuilt, but it was put back in the exact same spot. So no house has actually changed its depth. I mean, those are all pre-existing homes.
I've asked.
No, that house was moved all the way up to the front.
Which one, the Pellic Rose?
It was a little.
I'm thinking of another house than the one that's
There was
on
a
the
little
corner.
cape that was on that corner, and it was set back close to the one next to it, which is much further back
Oh,
too
okay,
than this.
then maybe I'm wrong. I'm thinking of another home then.
Any other public comment? All right, so you prepare yourself for the next meeting?
We'll be able to bring a landscape plan if that pleases the board.
Well, you're hearing the testimony of the entire board, we're missing a member. Understand that you still have two members that would have to be persuaded.
We've shown our willingness before, and we hope that you take that into consideration, that we are trying to do what we can.
Thank you. I'm asking the board to adjourn so you can prepare yourself for the next meeting?
Yes.
Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn until next meeting.
I make a motion to approve the applicant's request to adjourn to our next meeting for Leah Marie Rosalia on Elm Street.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Next application, please.
Gerald Malanga, Ducktown Lane.
Is the applicant present? Driveway gates. Name for the record?
Good evening. Anastasios Tezakis, architect.
Okay.
Proposing two sets of entrance driveway gates along Duck Pond Lane as per the drawings.
Both entry will be the same design?
Correct.
What is the spacing between the slats, the opening? Just for the record.
4 inches.
And the lattice under, I'm sorry, the gates itself, the material that's been built?
The material is a painted, I'm sorry, the gate is powder coated metal and the pillars are AZAC wrapped columns.
Will there be any lanterns, any light above the pillars?
No lighting.
No lighting. Brian, any issue?
No, I think it's a very handsome gate.
Jeff?
Yeah, it's fine. If you find the property, it'll be fine.
Transparency is fine. And we appreciate you for presenting the application as such.
Thank you.
Any public comment on the application? Motion to approve?
I make a motion that we approve the driveway gates for Gerald Malongo on Duck Pond Lane.
I second that. All in favor?
Yes, sir.
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Does the color need to be submitted?
Is that the color?
It's actually a lot darker than that.
Why don't you give us a
I have a
swatch?
chip, yeah. Pass it this way.
Thank you. Oil the bronze. That's fine.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thanks.
Next application, please.
Bork and Boylan on Somerset Avenue.
Good evening. Architect for the applicant, A.M. Sutton. We're here to propose a new home to be constructed on the, you want me to hang that up or?
Joe.
Anyone else, I guess?
See the plans?
Yeah.
The property is on 126 Somerset. This home here is a two-story traditional style, 5,100 square foot home. The existing home, that's counting both floors. I thought you were looking questioning things. Not including the attached garage. The house itself will occupy about 9% of the lot area. We believe that this development is completely compliant in all the zoning standards, including height. We're 2 feet under. The required height limit is 32 feet. We're maintaining it at 30. We do need to demolish the existing home, which is on the property for approximately, I don't have the exact number, but it's between 15 and 20 years old, the home. And it's essentially a style change, and we explored with the owner trying to do a renovation, but it just didn't work because their space needs were just too large. But we actually set the home further back on the lot. The current home is at 67.1, and we pushed the house back to 80 feet from the road. It's also uniquely on it's kind of the crook of Somerset, so it's not really obtrusive at all when you come down the block. Trying to think of
the material being used.
It's the builder just left. It was crazy. He's just here with me, but someplace he just had to go out to the men's room, I guess. It's all wood siding and wood roof, all cedar, and
cedar roof.
These are Marvin windows, white clad. It's all copper. All the eyebrow.
Is that copper
roof.
on your eyebrow window?
Eyebrows, copper. This brow at the entryway, it's kind of it's kind of sweeping roof at that entry. That's the copper. The above the garage door, we kind of match that also just to bring the colors and textures across. It narrows as it comes to the road because it's on the corner. So it's a very diminished front yard as you come in. Unusual driveway pattern, which we have on the plot plan, allows for 7 off-street parking spaces.
Ryan, comments?
I think it's a classic traditional house. I don't think it's out of character. And it's in this neighborhood, I think it's fine.
Jeff?
I'll agree with the first part, but have some questions on the second part. As I drive through the neighborhood, most of the houses are fairly modest, well-designed and modest. The way I see this house, in terms of its size, yes, you're compliant, but it's a 7-bedroom house in a neighborhood of mostly probably 4-bedroom houses. In terms of scale, I know bedrooms are not an issue.
But for the record, we acknowledge that bedroom count is not within the jurisdiction of this board. we're going to talk about the size of the home in a manner of its impact at the street.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Thank you. So, and in that regard, I would love to see a streetscape because in a 3D rendering.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, as I drive through that neighborhood, I do think yes, it is on a corner as you make that turn, but I don't agree with you 100%, and maybe it's just because I need to see it, that it will be unobtrusive, as you say. I think it may be obtrusive, and I would just like
I would like to ask
For
a
that
question, because the home directly to the north of this,
Yes.
adjacent to it,
Yes.
is a fairly prominent home.
Yes, yes, it
It's
is.
very sizable comparatively to the neighborhood. It is a little bit of an anomaly to the rest of the neighborhood.
It is.
And I think that, we're kind of sistering to that, meaning that it's not an isolated, the massing of this will be much more diminished than that one, because that is less than 40, I think it's about 40 feet back from the road. I mean, the front, the way the garage is, we're almost double the setback, only because we're in that corner, I know that. And we felt strongly it mitigated our size in a way that certainly diminished it, just the perspective of it being set far back.
So.
My hope is that you would find that an agreeable
Well,
discussion.
it helps, but in terms of visual help, I need some assistance, and I would love to see a streetscape
Okay.
with a rendering.
I don't think that they're anxious to get started. I know that we're hopeful of an approval. I think that the owner would be agreeable. But currently, most of the properties, other than the one adjacent to us, are just lawns. This property has a lawn that everything is wide open when you're driving down the block. So if you're suggesting that we provide some planting that screens that, like a hedgerow or something like that, so it's just not visible from the street, would that help?
I'm not, the only thing I'm suggesting is that I'm having an issue accepting that house, as it's designed, is in complete harmony with the neighborhood, and that it will not be unobtrusive. And so I'm just asking for some help in making that judgment with the provision of a rendering.
Another
Which
rendering.
other? Well,
You
of a
wanna-
streetscape.
Okay, just from the road in the front, just to show plants that screen it?
No,
basically?
the houses
Oh,
to either side.
What we've asked in past times to show content of this particular structure as built and how the volume would look on the streetscape.
I'd like to introduce
I was
the
on
builder,
Bantam break.
Brian. So, and
Your business.
Too much
he
information.
actually-
Just so we can finish the conversation, I have absolutely no problems with the application
thank you.
submitted.
And-
I have no issues with with this particular house fitting in. I think you've come with traditional style and elements of the house that will fit in and tie in well. That picture there kind of makes me concerned about anyone who has kids driving out and hitting that tree. That's your problem, it's your issue, your concern, but it has nothing to do with me. Yeah, well, I have one I'm teaching to drive now. We don't have the votes this evening. One of the board members here is currently here is having some issues with the overall volume. And in that, he says that he would like to have a streetscape showing this particular home and showing 3 to the left, 3 to the right. That shows just exactly how this will tie in as a streetscape.
Okay, I do have pictures of the houses.
Yeah,
That helps.
I
If
thought
you have
this
that
would
part
be-
of,
Yeah, that would be useful.
Yeah, why not?
The one with the double gable.
your name for the record.
Brian Dennehy.
Okay, if you want to hand in your pictures that you have.
Okay. I have a survey here too, which correlates the pictures, kind of like a little key here.
You have addresses on the pictures so we can,
We should present one picture.
I want to, okay.
I just wanna, I'll do like this. I'm gonna go right to the heart of the matter here,
Okay.
if you don't mind me cutting
Okay,
in
go
here a
ahead.
little bit. So, this house happens to be directly around the corner from this home. So in terms of, we believe that the nature and character of the area is very similarly being met.
it's not really a streetscape, is it?
It's not streetscape, but I'm kind of keeping the character because I understand that each neighborhood evolves to a degree. I'm not trying to be too argumentative. I understand what you're saying.
This is 2 houses down, this one.
Yeah,
I'm not
This
taking
one,
it that way.
this one's actually 2 houses down.
but
This one.
we'll hand
We
them
can
all.
just get addresses. I mean, it helps out.
Okay,
for
so-
building a record. So if you're going to hand that in as evidence,
Yeah, I have
why don't you hand that
addresses,
in
so I'll
as
put
part of the
addresses on
record.
them.
Also indicate what the addresses are.
Okay, absolutely. And do you need the affidavits for today, or?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I believe I saw them.
Okay, so that's two affidavit of the sign posting and of the mailing?
Yes.
That's you? Okay. And what else did you need?
You going to hand in the photos?
Okay, I can do those photos, okay.
Are they on the photos?
Yeah, they are. I had other photos too. I guess on the next meeting I'll bring them down. That would be helpful. I guess. Okay.
Streetscape, we need a
Okay.
streetscape. Any particular scale, or can it be a photograph?
Photograph?
Panorama, would that be
Correct.
okay?
That would be helpful. If you could do rendering and
Yeah,
to
we
scale,
would
that would be
render
helpful.
ours and put it in the context of the actual neighborhood. This
That would
way
be fine.
you can see it.
Yeah, also, what I have is pictures of the landscape around the property. All the plantings. There's pretty mature plantings all around, so just wanted to show that as well.
Okay.
Okay.
So any public comment on the application? All right, so as you prepare that for the next meeting, you're asking this board to adjourn so you can prepare yourself for the next
Yes,
meeting?
please, yeah.
Motion to approve applicant's request to adjourn.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant's request to adjourn for Bork and Boylan on Somerset Avenue.
Second.
Till the
All in
next
favor?
meeting. Aye.
Thank you.
Very much, thank you. Have a nice day.
Next application, please.
Next application is Thomas and Kristen Ruger, and it's my
No,
project.
can't call the application. We don't have standing to open that application up, so we'll go to our next meeting, next application.
500 Old Town LLC.
Good evening. I'm Jason Green. I'm the owner. And hopefully you have all the information you need. Be showing the gates.
What is the panelization underneath? How high is that?
To be perfectly frank, I don't know the exact height of the panels. I have a photo of the gates that were approved last year, actually in my other residence at 606 Halsey Neck Lane. It's the exact gate, and at that time it was approved by this board. And an image of it, I don't know the exact height of the panel there, to be perfectly frank. The total height of the gate is 5 feet 9 inches. And the reason why I show this image is you see through it, as I know the board is, it's an important matter, so to speak.
Yes, we also normally typically ask for lower panel, more transparency. So the reason why panelization is a little wider than normal?
This is what I built last year. I mean, this home is also the exact same gate at 420 Ox Pasture Road. And that's where I got it from as well. It's a gate that I like. I think it's very clean. You see through it. At the same time, it affords, I guess, some form of privacy, but not much. I mean, as you can see, you see right through.
Brian, have any issues with the design as submitted?
No, because I think the spacing is really wide at the top.
Where's the spacing between the flats?
They're 3.5 inches in between.
And the spindles look like they're like 1.5.
They're 1.5 by 1.5, correct.
Jeff, do you have any issues with?
No, it's relatively consistent with the property 456, which has a somewhat smaller panel, but then it has a much higher arc. So at the end, it's a bit of a trade-off, and I think it's okay.
Any public comment on the application? Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion that we approve the driveway gates at 500 Old Town Road.
Thank you very much.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next application, please.
Next application is Kidd Construction.
Hi, William Manier, architect. Here on behalf of the client to answer any questions you may have. I have small sets of the project. I also have the affidavit of posting and mailing. The small sets are exact, small replications of the full sets submitted, the site plan, the landscape plan. Also included are some additional information. I have renderings, the front and back of the house, to give you an idea, answer questions as to materials, and I have an aerial view of the property. The lot's about 0.8 of an acre, and it's in an R20 zoning, so it's a big lot for the area. It's a traditional in materials, shingled house, white trim, white windows. The house is approximately, well, the house is, let me see, almost 5,700 square feet. I also have included, in addition to the aerial, and that's small, so I only have one copy. It shows, again, an aerial view with the neighbors, sort of to give you an idea of surrounding houses, not exactly a streetscape, but kind of give you a context of the adjacent properties. It's sort of a booming area right now. It seems like there's a lot of new construction in that area. The current lot is a vacant lot. There are two vacant lots there. It's the northern lot of the vacant lots.
How wide's the house? It's about 60
The house is 60 feet. I believe the envelope is 60 feet and change, so it takes up all of the allowable envelope.
Kind of mirrored the two lots to the, what's that, south, correct? The two lots to the south kind of mirrored the same style.
Yeah, two lots to the south. It's a hip roof, sort of a transitional in style. This house, that house.
I remember approving this.
Yeah, that house. I see what you're saying. Yep. This house isn't as wide. It doesn't have the hip roof front porch. The gable on the front is much more dominant. We've softened up our garage, keeping the roof line very low.
Deck on the front?
Little Juliet balconies.
Yes.
It's a detail. It's I mean, there's really not a view out the front. I guess they're not critical, but
there's no view in the front.
Right. It's a little relief to the rooms, just a little detail on the front of the house there with the Chippendale rail.
I don't know about that. Remember us going through great lengths on the application for 42 Moses to get the garages inverted so that the garage doors were not facing Moses, for the obvious reason. It's not something that's really attractive to see driveway doors driving down Moses Lane. Is there any way we can invert that and push it to the side like was done on 42 Moses?
Well, we tried to offset the driveway into the property, if you look on the landscape plan. And with the hedge and the trees, I'm not sure you'll see the driveways, doors from the street so, so clearly.
Do you see any other parcel, especially new construction, that illustrates the visual driveway doors on Moses?
Other than seeing a detached garage somewhere, no.
Further back, correct?
But there are detached garages that face the street.
That are set further back.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the reason why.
The garage doors, I guess, could be swung into the side. It's just they're tighter to the house, clearance, maneuvering. I thought we could block them with landscaping by offsetting the driveway, but okay.
Brian, comments?
I'm just a little concerned about the width of the house, and it's taking up the whole sky plane. I think we're going to need a streetscape on this one as well. And the garage, I agree with you as well.
Garage,
yeah.
To Brian's point, one of the things that makes it difficult, and this is my error, that I viewed those vacant lots as one, not realizing that there were two.
Yeah.
So whereas I had not been concerned about the setback originally, I am now. I do respect and compliment you on moving the house back 75 feet, because the other houses, when I set them off, were about maybe 50 or 60 feet. So from that standpoint, the placement off the street is fine. I liked very much your suggestion about rotating the garage, because now that you brought it up, when I think of the other houses on that street, they do have that garage, the garage doors inside, and it does make a difference. And yeah, I'd like to see what the house looks like without these. It may be without the Juliet balconies. I don't know, it makes it a little bit busy for me. Brian, or Curtis, what's your thought?
I don't necessarily have it. I just didn't see the reason for having Juliet balconies at the front looking at the street. I think that they're modest, and I don't really think it detracts from the overall front facade of the house. But again, it's necessity. I would prefer it not to be, unless someone comes before us and says there's a privacy concern or issue. I wouldn't really have an issue with it. The necessity would only be the only question I have, and quite frankly, that's not the purview of this board to figure out why. The garage is my biggest concern, and I will agree with Brian in with regards to the overall impact to the street and occupying the full extent of the lot itself, and would definitely need to see an overall streetscape. This is one of the, one of the things about Moses is that they have a collected and very different lot sizes. Some are large, some are deep, some are wide. It just has this mishmash of different things that are happening.
Right.
I'm assuming at some point you're going to be, you or someone else will be developing the lot, the other vacant lot of the two. And that means we will have two of these standing side by side. It could definitely have an impact. But with regards to this individual application and looking at this sole and separate, garage I have a concern with, overall mass of the house itself. Brian, do you have an issue with the Juliet balcony?
No. I can understand the reasoning for them, and it's in the front of the house. I don't think there's any privacy.
Okay.
One more thing in terms of the streetscape, and it's apparent on this as well, is that the house immediately to the north was built God knows when, but obviously it's grandfathered, because I don't think that side width is probably more.
That one?
The one that's immediately to the north.
Yeah.
I don't think that's more than about 10 feet from the side lot. Would be my
70?
Yeah. Yep. You can see it there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the house conforms with pyramid. The second story is set in from the first floor, so if the first floor is 60 foot wide, the second floor, is not. Shrinking the width of the house is definitely going to affect the program.
Sorry, say going to affect the
program. It's going to affect. And the house will probably be deeper, not as wide. Would
Which is
tiering-
usually historically what happens to long, narrow lots.
I mean, would tiering or stepping on the second floor further, soften that? I mean, it is conforming with pyramid right now.
No one, well, I would normally, under most circumstances, say that because you're here, you conform to pyramid.
Right.
I don't assume anything, but we, at this point, unless someone's told us differently, have to go under the assumption that you do.
So your concern is just that we're as wide as
Impact.
we can go.
Impact. You're there. Your impact, your streetscape. You really would need to come before this board and show that overall, once built, the impact wouldn't be so effective that it maybe even negatively affects Moses overall. And that may be a narrowing and putting more of the mass towards the back of the property.
I mean, you did bring up the 75-foot setback. That is to the garage face. I mean, the body of the house is still another 25 feet
And you do have lots
past that.
You do have lots, and the good news is you've got a lot of space in that lot to expand it backward.
Right.
So you've got options as well.
Right.
And it sets back, so really the front facade is that.
Right, that's what he was saying, it stepped in. Yeah.
I mean, it's stepped in quite a way. I mean, the second floor in the
see
front
that?
might only be 50 feet or so.
Stepped in, so
Right.
it was.
I mean, I could probably give you the exact dimension.
Even if you were to probably exaggerate that more, step in. Maybe that, so now we have the house that looks like it's, the second floor is submissive to the front, and therefore giving that illusion that it's stepped down a bit.
Okay.
Okay, so garage, and front yard setback and streetscape. Any public comment on the application? Asking the board to adjourn so you can prepare that at the next meeting?
Yes.
Motion to approve the applicant's request to adjourn.
I make a motion that we approve the applicant's request to adjourn for Kidd Construction Company on Moses Lane.
Second.
All in favor? Next application, please.
Next application is 900 Meadow Lane.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brian Brown. I'm the architect representing this application. I'm submitting the affidavit to originals. I also have something that might help explain the application to hand you. Can I-
Has to be stamped in? These plans or are these renderings?
Plans and renderings that will help describe.
What you're proposing is a duplicate that was already in file. Have you made any alterations or changes from what we received here in file?
No, no. I will just, while she's handing those out, present the facts of the property. It's 900 Meadow Lane. Wait till you guys. Okay, it's 900 Meadow Lane. The property size is 4.5 acres. It's in R80 zoning. It's not a historic property. The existing house is 7,000.
R80 or R120?
It could be it's R120. I apologize. I have R80.
All right.
R80.
Okay.
The house is, the application tonight is simply to make the house a flat roof house. The client was unhappy with the way the house looks, and it was built in the 1970s. The application is to make a flat roof house within the proposed allowable height limit of 27 feet. Currently, the maximum ridge right now is at 28 feet, so we'd be 12 inches lower than the max ridge in the elevations. The first image that I gave you is the existing structure. And the bigger image behind it, the third image, is the proposed elevation rendering. We're simply asking for the structure to be lowered and flat, and we're asking for you guys to approve adding the wood siding where it's now currently stucco, and allowing us to replace the windows to match the same color that's existing now. The roof materials are the black and bronze, and where there's the other rays below the bronze will be this dark teak wood. So those are the two finishes that we're applying for.
I think
do you guys like it, or?
No, I do like it.
Is it?
Seems like a lot of trouble then.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting to. It's like,
well, he wanted to change the mechanicals and make the house more efficient. It was built in the 70s.
Yeah.
And so he said, "Can we make
like
a flat roof?"
Are you doing something to the chimneys? They seem a little bulkier on here.
Yeah, the left one is for a service stair for the roof, and the right one is for the fireplace. So we wanted to match them.
I see. Okay. I don't have any issues with this.
No, I think it actually looks pretty cool.
Good luck.
Okay. Thanks.
Any public comment on the application? Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the application of 900 Meadow Lane Associates.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thanks. Last application for the night.
8 Old Town Lane.
This goes in the Elm Street.
Good evening, Melissa Dedovich, Peconic Environmental Associates. I'm here on behalf of 8 Old Town Lane, LLC. I'm here with the architects from Jim Merrill's office.
I can't hear. Sorry.
I'm here with the architects Jim Merrill and Marina from also, and they'd like to present the project.
Okay. Postings.
I think that's a mini version of what we submitted earlier.
Is it duplicated what's already in file?
Yes.
Have you made any modifications or alterations?
That's the latest.
Proceed.
This survey, I don't know if you have a survey handy. I can hold this up and just introduce you to the property quickly. It's a 4-acre lot in the Old Town subdivision, which is, a new subdivision. Here's Wickapog here. You enter Old Town Lane, so that's the commons right there. So this is back off Wickapog. The front of this house faces the common area here. Again, it's a 4-acre lot. The house is set back from the front more than the houses. I don't know if you know the adjacent houses.
Yeah.
This one is farther forward with the idea of the backyard, front to back, running this way. We're bringing our driveway in off Old Town along the north side to an auto court here. And the house is basically a T-shaped crossing bars like this, creating different spaces, L-shaped spaces in the landscape with the building. The road also runs down, Old Town Lane also runs down on the south side. There's one house here that is completed. I don't believe there's another house. I don't think there's another lot here. So this is, in a sense,
a driveway for one other house.
That doesn't exist yet.
Down
There is
here?
one
Is there
up.
one more lot here?
There is.
One more lot,
Back,
okay,
yeah.
so.
So we can get to this particular house. We can go over the design, the materials that are being used.
Sure.
Just go over the aesthetics of the structure that you're proposing.
I'm gonna let Marina do that, and we brought some renderings to add to this. Do you want us to?
That would be great, thank you.
Do you want us to, we'll go through these first and then hand them to her.
Each one that you show us, if you could show the camera too, so that we can have it as part of record.
This is the west facade of the house. This is what you would see as you come in the driveway.
Sure.
The ground floor of the house has thick stucco walls and columns. The second floor has a pitched roof with cedar shingles, which would become a nice silvery gray. Also has dormer windows. And we are thinking that all the trim would be painted wood, as are the windows. The windows would be Marvin windows. We have floor-to-ceiling glass on the ground floor, and we have double-hung windows with divided lights up above. So this is what you would see upon entry. This is the actual entrance of the house. Is it hard to see? We can move that around. You would come in under a porch, an open porch with stucco columns, with a solid painted wood door, a big window above in the shingled gable. You can see through the house in many different places. This is another view of the entry as though one were standing over near the garage, just to give you a sense of the roofscape. This is the back side of the house, the south facade. And you can see the two wings that intersect the main roof ridge, which runs east to west. This is another big covered porch, which would be an outdoor dining, with a painted brick outdoor fireplace. And on the other side is another family space. And we have two sets of dormers that move along the roof and hopefully make it more interesting. And this is our last rendering, which is out by the pool, looking back towards the house and through the living room and open porch space at the back of the house. And again, these dormers that move all the way around on the back side. That's it. I've brought a sample of the stucco. We're imagining a sort of warm, creamy white stucco.
Thank you.
And the wood trim we were thinking might be a little darker than the renderings, so this is the sample we were thinking of, which would look nice with the silvery gray shingles. And that's really all. Hope you like it.
House is fun.
I hope so.
No,
We
it
had
really
fun
is.
doing
It
it.
really is. I don't have an issue. I like the different style, but it's not the style itself. I don't feel it's out of keeping, especially in a very, I guess, very relatively new but eclectic community and neighborhood. I have no issues with the application to submit it. Brian?
I think it's beautiful. It's great. It's a modern house with very traditional forms. I love the play with the dormers, you know, just to create some movement up there on the roof. It's great. And it'll be a good mix in that development. Yeah.
I would mention that they have, you know, their own architectural guides. If you've seen them, there's 50 pages of, and we have their approval for this too. So
okay, that's great.
And I would also like to just add that the landscape's going to be an Ed Hollander landscape plan, which is also in the field, in the file.
Okay, thanks, Melissa.
Yeah.
I would only say what Brian was saying in different words. So. In others, I agree.
Okay. Public comment, please. All right. No opposition at this board. Good luck.
Thank you.
Motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve the application of 8 Old Town Lane LLC.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have minutes to be approved from the 26th.
They were already approved.
Should have known. November 6th.
Yes, anyway.
Meeting be approved.
Night.
You guys were all present.
Board members had the opportunity to see the minutes? Yes. Comments, questions, concerns?
No.
Motion to approve the minutes from November 9th.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from November 9th, 2015.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And motion to close this evening's meeting.
I make a motion that we close the meeting of the Architectural Review and Historic Preservation Board for November 23rd, 2015.
I second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Happy Thanksgiving.
Good.